Welkom bij de leiderschapspodcast van City Life Church. Dit is Leadership Talks.
Hi, hallo, opnieuw welkom bij Leadership Talks. Dit is nummer 24, episode 24. And I'm going to switch into English again because I have a guest with me today who lives and works in Switzerland. So, Ed Wells, welcome to our Leadership Talks.
Good to be here.
You're going to tell us a little bit who you are and what it means to be Swiss working in Switzerland. That's interesting. But first we always start with this one. And I'd like you to comment on leadership is the problem and leadership is the answer. This is Leadership Talks. So can you respond a bit on that?
Yeah. Well, that's what I've experienced. In my own life, in my own leadership. If I am both the solution as well as the problem. And if I look back and if I evaluate and if I'm honest enough, many of the problems that have arisen have been because I've neglected, I've put the blame on someone else rather than taking responsibility and becoming a part of the solution. So leadership is always complex. It has many different levels and moving parts to it. It's always a tension. But yeah, I think it is summarized in that. And in my leadership, I've seen, when you step up and own your part and your responsibility, then you begin to shape it.
Yeah. So that's good. Who is Ed Wells? You live in Switzerland. Tell us a bit what you do.
So born in England, originally from England. I met my wife in England. She studied there, and then she imported me.
Well, she is Swiss.
She is Swiss, which now means technically I am half Swiss. Dual citizenship. So I've lived there now over 20 years.
Yeah.
So it really is home. I feel more at home in Switzerland than I do in England.
In England, yeah. We know Switzerland from the Alps. We know it's very expensive. Your pizza is crazy expensive.
It is for us too.
I go there every year 1 week and then I escape to Italy because of the prices.
Yeah.
But your country is beautiful.
Yeah.
And it is very neutral. You no euro, no you have your own Swiss francs.
Yeah.
We as Europeans think, what are the Swiss doing? Thinking neutral, are they there?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah. It's fascinating, and there is a degree of mystique or mystery to that.
Yeah,
but
in the middle of Europe on the map, you always see this country.
Yeah. I think part of the mindset, which is something that I've discovered and read about, is that we do tend to separate what neutrality means. So neutrality from a military aspect does not mean neutrality from a business aspect. And so if you look back into the past, yes, we weren't involved in certain military actions, but we were definitely involved in business. So it's not just neutrality holistically, it's a little bit departmentalized. But it's something that, the people are proud about to some extent, but it's also a small country. But it has a wealth of resource.
A wealth of resource, yeah. You speak Swiss, French in the south, German.
In the country, there are 4 languages. The largest portion. It's a country of about 8 million people. The largest portion is Swiss German, and then Italian in the south, French in the west, and then there's a 4th one which most people don't know about called Romanish, Retro-Romanish, which is really quite small. It's about 100,000 people.
Really?
But and then so obviously in school people get some of that, but often tend to lean towards English just because it's broader, international sense.
So we think the Swiss are very independent. I don't know what you think about Europe, but Europe is doing something, trying to build something together, but the Swiss are always in the middle, doing not what the rest. Is it a bit, would you say that's typically Swiss? Is that a bit of the culture, independence?
I think Switzerland is basically a highly developed country. So there's a very high standard of living. a lot of a very high level of education. So all of our education is still government funded. So you can do your university degree with very little cost. So there's a high value on education, and you continue. You don't just finish in your early 20s. Often you continue. You can do a second or a third training. And so there is a high level of skill. And so I think on one level, Switzerland kind of finds its niche, but also because it's small. Germany is a bit like the big brother, and we can be intimidated. 8 million people in Switzerland, 80 million in Germany. I think the whole political system, it's a direct democracy. So we get to vote on basically every law.
Yeah.
That is passed. So every 3 months we get an envelope.
Yeah.
These are the laws that are going to be coming up, and
you vote.
We get to vote on them. In reality, people only vote, and not everybody votes on every law, unless it's a bit more interesting.
Yeah.
And then a greater percentage of people get involved. But yes, there is that direct democracy, which creates a mindset of everyone has an opinion about everything, which is both a blessing.
Yeah, you ask for all these opinions all the time. Every 3 months you ask for all the opinions.
Yes.
What does that do to the culture?
I mean, in our world, when we're working in the church world, and we see something in the kingdom or a kingdom structure, and we're trying to create
that must be direction. A big challenge.
It's a challenge because there's a.
But you don't vote every 3 months.
No.
About decisions in church.
So you have that clash of cultures.
Yeah.
Of a Swiss culture, which is basically inbred or trained over time of I have a right to say something.
Yeah.
My opinion must be heard.
Yeah.
You
should ask for my opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
Every 3 months.
Yeah. Whereas the kingdom doesn't function in that way, and therefore church can't function in that way. But you have to accept and embrace how a culture works and ticks.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just constantly at clashes.
Yeah.
Clash. And so you have to work within that, understand the psyche and the general mindsets, and be able to lead through it, with it.
You're leading a church in different locations?
Yeah, so I didn't start the original location. I took it on and repurposed it. And then a few years ago we started, or actually we took over a small group which we then developed into a second location. And now we're in the process, so that's in Zurich. So our original campus, so to speak, original location is in a city called Aarau. It was actually the capital of Switzerland for a few months.
Oh yeah?
Many, many years ago. And they moved it to Bern. Then Zurich, and we're in the process, we're calling it micro-church at the moment, in another city called Lucerne. Where the house is. The museum is, and that's about an hour away.
Yeah, the Kapellbrücke. Everyone, you know the Kapellbrücke in Zurich.
Yes.
In Lucerne. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, and so you are in the city where all the gold is. Is that right?
Yeah,
that's what they tell me. I've never seen it.
I know.
Never seen it.
It kind of creates a little mystery. But apparently, I mean, one of the industries that Switzerland has zoned in on and become specialized in is banking and insurance. And obviously all of those rules and regulations have changed over the last decade or two, so it's not quite so secret as it used to be. But because it is independent, but not independent from business or neutral from business, there seems to be a lot of money from different places. It's also generally a safe place, a safe currency, a stable currency. So it does get used as a place.
Swiss francs. Yeah. Hey, Ed, you were this is interesting in the leadership talks. So you have a country where every 3 months they can, tell their opinion, and now you're building a church. Kingdom culture is different.
Yeah.
Can you zoom in a bit more? That must be a challenge. How does that work? People come walking into your church with a certain mindset, and you kind of have to teach the culture of the kingdom mindset.
Yeah. I mean, if I zoom out just a little bit, so I come originally from England, bringing one paradigm and England has its own history with the empire, and so it has a different shaping of leadership on it. Live in Switzerland, then take on leadership within Switzerland, understanding the psyche and the culture of Switzerland, and then trying to embrace and introduce kingdom culture. So I think you need to be patient. It needs to be, I think leadership has a lot to do with talent, can pop up quickly, but leadership and the trust and the credibility is really established over time. And so to be patient, establish vision, communicate, and just keep plugging away, just being consistent and sharing the why, I think, is really just what has helped us keep moving the ball. And once a culture is primarily established, then obviously it needs to be kept. It's always in movement. It's not just done, tick that box, move on to something else. And so it's always shifting. But to keep those things, those important things at the center remains a challenge. It remains a tension. And every now and again, you're caught by surprise.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself explaining a lot on this subject?
I think
like this is what we are used to in Switzerland. This is kingdom culture.
Yes. I think explaining the why, because particularly with new people coming in, a culture embraces, but it also expels. And so even if, like, you go to Italy, there's something about the culture which embraces you, you like it. But as you stay there and you get to understand the mentality, there's not everything you like. That maybe the aspects of it that you push against. So coming into a culture in a church, and hopefully, predominantly a kingdom culture that's very including, very embracing, a high touch culture, very hospitable, is very attractive. But then, right, there's process. People have to start going on a journey, and it really means that they need to be changed. They need to go be discipled, and so then they start to hit walls. And we worked similar to you. We've been doing this quite a long time now, and so when we shifted and established and very purposely began to create a culture, it's like there came moments of breakthrough. As new people come in, they enjoy it. But it doesn't mean they understand it.
Yeah, right. That's a big difference.
There's a huge difference. And so, yes, you need to keep explaining the why, again and again. Otherwise, you have people that maybe personify the culture, but they don't know why. Or it's delegated to personality or gift type. So a hospitable church, the Swiss are cautious. They're a little bit private. When you break through the service, they're actually very warm and interested and willing to help. So a hospitable culture in Switzerland it just stands out much more than in Italy or a warmer climate. So you have to create that. But people can think that's just personality type. No, we need to get beyond personality into kingdom, and what does that mean for behavior? But as I said, new people coming in will begin to maybe take that on, but don't understand the why.
They like it.
They
enjoy it.
They enjoy it.
But they don't understand the why. You have to explain and train and coach. And
so that's why we have to keep going back again and again and again to fairly basic things.
Can I zoom in a bit more on Switzerland? The Swiss flag. It is a cross, right?
Yes.
The red flag with the white cross. It's not just a cross.
No.
There is a story, a Christian story behind. Can you tell us a little bit?
It goes all the way back to the 1200s, where there was a federation, an agreement, and basically they said, we want to put the cross and we want to put the Word of God at the very center.
That is amazing.
It is amazing, and it has shaped history. And so our Constitution is basically founded upon the Word. And obviously that gets eroded and changed and developed over time. But the basic values and laws are based upon the Word of God. and then was again affected by the Reformation. And so there were hot spots. It didn't affect the whole nation, but there was a reforming that took place that affected Basel and Bern and Geneva, and really shifted much of the...
Geneva is one of the places where Reformation kind of started.
Yes.
Tell us.
Yeah.
Briefly.
Yeah. I mean, there have been a number of reformers. Some of them are more known than others, but Zwingli was one of them. And so it really went from the cities. It ran like hot fire and reformed the Catholic Church and broke away. And then there came further movements of separation as those people that were zealous began to persecute others that didn't agree with them. And so that actually there was an exodus of believers that went to America. So it's a rich history, but it's not, it's not just all nice and clean. It's a mix. But the Reformation has affected Switzerland. And so in almost every village, there is a Reformed church. It depends on the area because it didn't go everywhere, as well as a Catholic church. Numerically, there's not really a lot of free churches. So even though Switzerland was affected by the Reformation, right now we have a very small percentage of church-going people that would identify themselves as born-again believers. They are Christian or not Christian, or a number of things, Reformed or Catholic on paper, but that doesn't mean anything in practice and lifestyle.
That was my next question.
Okay.
So a constitution based on Christian values, on the Word of God, the cross in your flag. These days, do you still see and feel that influence, or
I think
Christianity you already gave the answer a little bit, but is there still a lot of people with,
I think it's both.
A God awareness?
I think it's both. I think that heritage has shaped values, but those values don't necessarily connect into a living faith.
That's the difference. The values are okay. Based on the Christian values. But that's something else than a relationship with God. Then faith. Then your faith.
So Switzerland basically is a very law-abiding country. It's very safe. There's very little crime. If you lose something, there's a fair chance it'll get handed in and you'll get it back. And so I think that is shaped from the value system over a period of time, but it doesn't equate into a living faith, into a living relationship. So it's also, as I said, a very high standard of living, but that without faith creates emptiness, depression, and so a very high level of suicide, of mental illness. We're talking pre-pandemic, okay? And so it all looks clean, it all looks nice, and behind that beautiful
very organized,
facade, very organized, trains that work on time,
even in the snow,
is the same cry. And so it's also known as the New Age Mecca of Europe, which explains a spiritual hunger which is unsatisfiable without a living relationship with God. So I think we see both. We see that, that maybe a rejecting of traditional, dry, not relevant values, faith, but at the same time, still our society being shaped by good values.
Back to our start.
Yes.
I appreciated it when you said, leadership is the problem, leadership is the answer. You immediately kind of went into a bit of, lessons learned from your own life. In the last few minutes we have, I thought that was a very honest start, actually, of our conversation. Can you give us one or two, suppose there's younger leaders, stepping up in leadership, and you as a daddy kind of, what would you say? One or two things, I made that mistake, don't do that.
I think, one of my biggest learning curves was we took the we took the church on a journey of repurposing it. And what we did really was copy-paste. We took some ideas from other places that inspired us. We imported those ideas, we copy-paste, and we thought that was sufficient. But really what we were doing was just copying something else. And so actually I was now leading a church that I didn't like. Oh. And so for a while, I pointed the finger at, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this, until I realized, well, that's my responsibility. So if I allow it, I'm responsible. If I don't allow it, I'm responsible. So went on the journey of, okay, if part of my leadership responsibility is to be the architect, to formulate what I want, what do I want? Answer, I don't know. So that was a aha moment.
Yeah.
How can anyone else follow if I don't know what I want?
Yeah.
And so it started me on a journey, well, I don't know what I want, so can I formulate what I don't want? And that was where I started. I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this, which led me to formulate, well, what do I want?
Yeah.
And so in that whole journey, I realized, actually, we'd shifted our style, but not our lifestyle, not our paradigm. And that took me on my own personal leadership crises and discovery. So you've got to be able to know, you've got to be able to formulate. Otherwise, if I say to you, follow me, but I have no idea where I'm going. Sooner or later, you're going to check out. Sooner or later, you're going to say, I'll follow someone who does know where they're going.
Yeah. So one last question. What makes you go home happy as a pastor? You've had your services. Oh, you mean like if I'm at home at not just coming back from Holland? You mean? No. On Sunday.
When
as a pastor. What makes you happy?
I mean, there are so many aspects, which we can easily get into too quickly. How many people were there, and how was the sound, and how was my message or preaching, etc., etc. But I think if we get beyond those things, which are important, but they're not the only thing, it's usually probably around conversations that I've had in the foyer. Maybe it's a new person that has no Christian background. So, we had a young family that came just a couple of weeks ago, and it was because her younger sister had come to faith with us, was getting involved. She invited her sister, the whole family came, zero Christian background, had no idea what they were coming to, didn't know that a church could meet in a cinema, came, and they just enjoyed it. They were spoken to. For me, that is huge. To see a new person, to see someone that's not, no Christian background, to see a person in faith just ignited again, or someone encouraged through a moment, just to hear those sort of stories. Hey guys, what were the conversations that you had? Who did you speak to today? Who did you get to invite to lunch? I think those are the things, kind of beyond the events or beyond the externals, into the life issues.
Changed lives. Changed by God's love.
That's what keeps me going.
Thank you, Ed. Our time is up.
My pleasure.
Thank you for coming over to a course that we had here from Switzerland. It's been a joy to have you with us here. And thank you for watching or listening. As you know, every fourth Tuesday of the month I have a guest here and talking leadership. En volgende keer is het weer iemand uit Nederlandse taal, maar niet helemaal. Hij komt uit Vlaanderen. Over een maand hebben we de 25e aflevering van Leadership Talks. Dus geef het door aan vrienden als je dit waardeert, als je dit leuk vindt. Laat het ons weten, laat het anderen weten. En we zien elkaar over een maand weer.